right, what's going on, everyone? Thanks so much for tuning in on this episode of the Retic Lounge. We have Jake Klotz with JK Reptiles joining us. We're really excited to bring you this interview. Before we go ahead and jump into that, just want to remind you guys to go ahead, like, subscribe, and comment on these videos on YouTube. And if you guys like to listen to the audio versions of all of these, go ahead and follow us on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Also, if you guys do want backseat access, want to join our Patreon, we just got off a call with our awesome Patreon members. We go live every other Friday and do a live Discord chat and provide kind of that backseat access that some of you might be wanting in the Retic Lounge. Nathan, go ahead and kind of introduce US ARC and talk about that, and then we'll jump into this thing.
Yeah, just make sure, especially if you're looking to be in the Retic community, you're also supporting US ARC if you're in the reptile community in general. Member numbers are more important than anything, so become a member first and foremost, and then just make sure you're helping out when need be and donating when you can.
Awesome. Jake, man, nice to have you. I know we've talked about this interview for a while.
It's been a while, yeah. I appreciate you guys having me on for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. Man, you're someone that I think both Lucas and myself have looked up to quite a bit in our first couple of years of breeding.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, we got a lot to uncover in terms of what we want to talk about with us having you on. But if it's okay with you, I'd like for you to just kind of introduce yourself and talk about how long you've been doing this thing. And you know, I know a lot of interview podcasts are how you got into it and everything. So go on and do that.
Well, so I've been keeping reptiles since I was a little kid, 4 or 5 years old. Retic specifically, though, I got my first Retic when I was about 14. I was working with my dad, saved up money all summer, and bought a tiger Retic from the local reptile store, Chicago Reptile House, which is owned by Brian Potter, who puts on NARBC. So bought a tiger Retic at 14, and then just kept working with my dad, and I bought more and more as time went on. Probably shouldn't have, I bought a ton of stuff, and yeah, I've had Retics basically from 14 till I was like 18, and then I sold all my snakes, and I kind of got into the car scene and was in that for a year or so, and then kind of got back into the snakes probably 19, and then just it's been Retics ever since then. So, and I'm going to be 38 here soon, so yeah, so it's been quite a while.
You said car scene.
Mm-hmm.
What cars, like what were you?
We used to do a lot of the street racing, and I have a Camaro that I've had since high school, and
okay,
just all that car shows and stuff like that. So I got really heavy into that and met some really cool people, and just all my extra funds went into that, and didn't really have the time or energy for snakes. I was just in love with the car stuff, and then really I still followed all the snake stuff back then. It was King Snake. There was some of the forums, Constrictors forums, Bob Clark's. So I still followed it. I just wasn't active. But I knew I was going to get back into it eventually. So yeah.
Yeah, I when I was growing up in Miami as a young kid, me and my brother, he had a group of friends. I've been around cars, mostly the JDM Japanese cars my whole life. So literally just Honda Civics, Nissans, Mazdas, those kind of things. So I remember being like 11 years old and my brother taking me to my first street race and actually cops breaking it up, and I was literally freaking out in the backseat of a boosted hatchback with 400 horsepower and a turbo in it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was good times, man. But yeah, that hobby,
it's very expensive.
It'll drain your money real quick.
Not like ours isn't, but that's a whole nother level.
It's a whole my Camaro, like I said, I've had it since high school, and I haven't really driven it much in the last 4 or 5 years. My son is super into the cars, like super crazy into it. So the plan is I want to keep it and build it up for him, and maybe do that could be our project when he gets a little older, and then high school. I figure by the time he's in high school, it's probably gonna be all electric cars, and he'll be driving around in some badass Camaro. So it should be cool. So yeah,
that'd be
fun.
awesome.
But yeah,
literally just pissing everyone off, stomping on the gas, and just
yeah. But I like the JDM stuff too. My dream is a Mark IV Supra. That's like my all time.
Oh man.
One day I will own that car. That's a goal of mine. So
I still check every once in a while, and there's one for sale over in California for $45K.
yeah, they're insane. There was a few times I contemplated selling all the snakes, just getting out of the snakes and just getting a car and doing the whole. Wouldn't have to worry about cleaning snakes and feeding snakes and doing the whole snake thing. Just have a nice car I could go cruise around and enjoy it. But yeah, I can't do it though. I just can't get rid of the snakes. So
For sure. How
Yeah,
long?
that fun of the car, I feel like, would wear off pretty quick. The fun of the
I don't
snakes
know. I don't know. 1,000 horsepower Supra, big turbo car, fun car to be ripping around, and I don't think that would ever get boring. So
No.
Okay,
no.
maybe it's just my perspective.
it would be
No,
fun for sure.
it's the feeding and the stress with breeding and selling animals that gets people to want to get out of the hobby. It's the piling up tickets from cops that want to get you out of the hobby from cars.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, it's fun. Though.
So let me ask you, tell us a little bit about your first experience with breeding. What year was that? What was your pairing? All that good stuff.
What made you want to start breeding too? Yeah.
Man, I've ever since I was little, I always wanted to do this would be my job, open a giant breeding facility. I mean, I have literal plans that I drew up of like my own breeding facility when I was like 12 or 13. And the plan was me and my cousin were going to open it. We wanted to do like a nerd type facility and have all sorts of crazy stuff. It's somewhere in one of my bins. But this is, like I said, 11 or 12 years old. But I've always been into I love the aspect of breeding animals in general and just reproducing them. And then once I started figuring out or seeing all the stuff about different colors and mutations and you can make different stuff, it just like opened a whole new world to me. I still remember watching Bob Clark when he hatched the first albinos in like '99, and I remember sitting. I've told this story a bunch. I remember sitting at the local library watching online like the hatch cam, I think is what he called it, and you'd see these little purple albinos or whatever albinos pop, start pipping out, and it was the coolest thing ever. And from that moment especially, I was like, oh my god, I have to do this at some point. It was the coolest thing. Every time I see Bob, or the last time I saw him especially, I reminded him of that. I'm like, I remember sitting for hours in front of this crappy webcam just to see a nose of an albino retic pop out when I was like, in my early teens or whatever it was. And yeah, it was neat. It was an awesome experience just to see that. And my first clutch though was in I think it was 2010 was the first clutch. That was my first year breeding. So that it was a platinum tiger male that I bought from Jim Gaspar. So I'm sure you guys know Gaspar, Jason Gaspar, his Jamps and all that. So Jim, Jason's dad, was probably my biggest mentor in the hobby. So I bought this male from him and I bred it to one of his pure Jamps. So that was my first breeding ever, was a platinum tiger to a pure Jamp female. And then that same year I had pure Sula eggs that I ended up killing because I didn't know what I was doing. So my first year, those were my two clutches.
Pure Sula, your first year.
Yeah, it was my first year. It was a small, it was like a 12 egg clutch. The Jamp clutch there, the 50% Jamp clutch, pipped on like day 77, and I was all excited, whatever. So the Sulas got to like 77, and I cut them like an idiot, and they probably had 2-3 weeks left to go. But man, I still have pictures of the babies. They were, to this day, I've never seen a Sula prettier than that baby. And then ever since then, it's evaded me. I cannot get it done. So it's one of those things. I think it's just, yeah. But it's been a long time, man. 2010. I want to say it was 2010.
Wow.
I want to ask you, and I don't think anyone really knows the answer, or else we would be able to successfully breed Sulas more often. But Sulas are known as like the hardest locality of retics to breed out there. For those of you that don't, that didn't know that. I mean, Blake Graves within the last couple of years has produced, within the last few years has produced a couple clutches, but time and time again, Sulas keep proving to be extremely difficult to successfully breed. And so I want to add, do you have any theories on why? So, I mean,
I don't know. So mine, when I did my breeding, the female I had was a captive born female. It was a Noda Howe female, and he was like the last guy to produce them. at that time, and I was after a pair for a long time. I finally tracked down this female and I picked her up. And then a buddy of mine had a wild caught male, so it was a wild caught male to a captive born female. And I put them in the first time they locked. So I was like, oh, this is easy, no problem. Like my first year breeding, I got a jamp female breeding, which apparently is super hard to breed. I got Sula's breeding, which was apparently never happened. So I'm like, this is not hard at all. And I don't. And my thought process was it was because for some reason I thought the wild caught females just were having a hard time cycling for whatever reason. And I thought, oh, as we get more captive born animals, it should be easier. But I don't believe that's the case. I mean, I still don't think there's enough of them. I have my own theories. I think the Banteng stuff might be a little different. I talked to Nick Berg about it. He believes like we're not keeping them right, the Sulas. As far as I think temperature gradient, cage sizing, all that sort of stuff.
That was kind of my theory. Just because I have a Salayer female, and I've done all the research that I can on Salayers, and Chris McVicker has been trying Salayers. Aubrey Pruitt, before he sold his animals, tried Salayers. I mean, Garrett produced a Salayer clutch in 2020, like accidentally, didn't even realize that she was even on eggs. And so Salayers are also kind of in with that same region, and I agree. I think it has to come down to a temperature husbandry issue that we're maybe generalizing to the other retics and not really paying like very close attention to their whatever it is that's different.
So and then I just had my my other I've 1.2 pure Sulas Terry Wilkins lines out of his second clutch, and the one female passed away. She ended up getting egg bound and died, which was a complete bummer. So I was almost there. But I mean, I did keep her in the bottom of my stack of visions, so she was on the bottom, a little cooler. I mean, I really had to put a lot of food into her to get her to cycle. And she was a big snake. I think when she passed away, I want to say she was like 16.7 or so. I mean, so by Sula standards, not huge, but it's just a good sized animal. But I mean, I was putting some massive meals into her to get her to go. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. So this year I have the other female that I have. I'm keeping her a little cooler, feeding her big meals. I mean, she is an absolute animal when it comes to her pigs. So she's putting on some crazy weight. I'm going to give it a shot again this year and see what happens. Hopefully I can get it done. But I don't know. I really don't know. It's a tough one. I don't know what the secret is, honestly.
And I'm sure, like, every year that you can't do it, you just want to do it even more the next year. Like, it's just one of those things you keep chasing.
I've gone in my head, I've thought about, like, just getting rid of the project as much as I love it. I would get rid of any snake I have for my perfect Sula in my mind, if I could make it. It's one of those things that's like a heartbreaker. I want it so bad, and it will not happen, or it just has not happened for me. And I keep going back to that first clutch that I had, and that one baby, I'll have to send you guys a picture of it. It is, in my opinion, the perfect. It's got the perfect intertwined rope down its back. It's got the 4 dots on its head. It's got a big head. It's man, if that snake would have made it, that would have been like the pride of my collection. So, it sucks.
Was it only one egg that you got from that?
No, so there was like, I think there was, like I said, 12 eggs total. They were giant.
Okay.
I mean, the eggs were huge. But some of them started to go bad. I think there was 4 when I cut them that had big babies in them. And like I said, they were just, I screwed up. I cut them too early. And I ended up, because they were alive when I cut them, but I did the whole Jay Brewer pop the sack and just totally screwed them up. So that was first year breeding mistake. So yeah, what can you do?
Yeah.
But different times now. I think there's more people doing it now where it's a little more... People have an easier time following that.
Back when I had my first clutch, I had all the help in the world, but 10, 12 years ago, you didn't have the network of people that you have now, or the ability that we have right now to network with each other. So this is a really great time for people who are really passionate about it to start getting into it.
Absolutely. But I'm really pushing the crosses. I have a lot of Sula cross stuff here now. I have a couple 75% animals. I have quite a few 50%ers. The 75s are awesome. They're small, but both of them I had really hard times with them feeding, like when they were smaller. So they're not very big. But I have a platy tiger, 75% Sula platy tiger. That's probably one of the prettiest platy tigers I've ever seen. And then I have a 75% Sula tiger male, which is crazy looking, and then a 75% Sula platy female, which is really nice looking. She's a chronic pusher. No matter what I do, she pushes nonstop all the time. I feed the crap out of her. She digests and instantly starts pushing again. She's just never ends with her. So,
So on that subject, our last episode that we recorded was pushing. What is your general advice? Like, quick little snippet for people.
So I've kind of recently started lowering temps on all my stuff. I was very much 88, 89 on the hot side. You know, my everything's in my basement, so my basement's a little cooler, but my cool side is still probably 72, 73 or so on the cool side. But I've actually been dropping a lot of my temps on my bigger stuff to like 86, 80. You know, my blonde stuff I keep cooler anyway, so like my big blonde tigers like 85 and a half. Just kind of been feeding them and seeing how they do, and it seems to be being a little more beneficial, honestly. I don't see them roaming as much as they have been or they used to. You know, and actually, I forgot who was telling me about that, just that they tried that and it worked. So I kind of followed suit. I'm not doing it on everything, but a few animals I'm trying it on, and it seems to be helping. So I don't know. We'll see. You know, 6 months, a year from now, if it stays that way. But as of right now, I feel like it's definitely helping.
Helping in terms of lowering those temps?
Yeah, as far as lowering the temps. Yeah. And I mean, I will say, like, when I see something cruising or pushing real bad, I usually I'll feed it. You know, even if I just fed it a week or so ago, because I was listening to your one podcast. And I kind of follow what like the UK guys do with the big meals and stuff. Everyone knows I'm a big meal guy. I don't like to feed a bunch, but I'll feed when I feed. I feed like monster giant food items.
My ternates, I like to see them kind of tilted on their side after their meal.
my big blonde tiger, she'll eat 40 plus pounds of pigs in a feeding. You know, she's huge. She'll eat two big 20, 25 pound, or maybe not 25, but 20 pound pigs in a feeding. I mean, she's huge. It's crazy. But I mean, she'll eat that 5 times a month or a year, 4 or 5 times a year, and that's it. So, but I'll do that too. If I see them pushing, I'll throw them an extra meal or something just to kind of help with that.
So what I'm hearing is, as far as pushing, lowering temps, and giving them a big meal, letting them have that time to slow down, rest, lower.
I mean, like I said, we're gonna see in a year. I've literally only been doing the lower temps for probably a month and a half or so, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's only on a few animals. It's not the whole collection. Can't really do it on the babies, unfortunately. You know, with the racks, it's impossible. So, But yeah.
I'm interested. Have you tried lowering the temps on the Sulas?
I'm going to do that this season. So my female's still slamming the food. So I think our temps here are kind of goofy. So, you know, I usually, once it starts getting into the 60s, I crack a window down here, get that cool air, and it usually helps with the females, start getting the females to cycle. So I haven't lowered the temps yet. I'm going to wait till it starts to get a little cooler out, and, you know, keep putting a lot of food to her. And hopefully it happens.
Yeah, I at least in the Superdorf community, a lot of people, and here's the thing is, I don't even know if this is like a fact. I should probably like look at this and look at temperatures, but there's like this idea out there that I've heard multiple times, and I can't even tell you who I heard it from, but that Superdorfs, from those Lesser Sunda or Bonaire Islands, those lower chains in the south, that they are cooler. And so I've been keeping my Superdorfs, when I was keeping a gradient temp, 86, 88. Anytime I got above 88, pushing. And so I'm curious to see how that works for you with, because I mean, you know, those chains are just south of Sulawesi, so I'm wondering what that'll do for your Sulawesi stuff.
I hope it helps. That's honestly, if I ever can get viable, healthy babies, I could never produce another snake, and I'd honestly be happy. So, it's just that's the one snake I'm dying to produce. So even with all the cool morphs, that's my goal. My goal snake is a perfect. Like I like the Palopo stuff, you know, I like the dark eyes and all that. That's kind of my thing. So Something like that I'd really, really like. But yeah.
If any of you guys are watching on YouTube right now and you know the secret to successfully breeding Sulawesis, I'm talking to you, Blake. Comment below. Tell us what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, no, but it's. I admire those that still chase that dream because the Sulawesis are known as this like. I mean, when you think of a retic in the U.S. and everyone thinks of like this giant, beautiful, big animal. I mean, the first locality most people talk about are Sulas. That's like the legend.
Yeah, they're awesome snakes, man. I've seen some monsters. A buddy of mine who lived in Wisconsin, he's really tight with Gavin. His name was Chad, and he had one of the biggest. It's probably still the biggest retic I've ever seen. A monster Sulawesi that he got from Nerd many years ago. It was the most beautiful snake I've ever seen, and just the colors on it. It was easily 20-foot snake. It was massive. But the colors and the head structure and the eyes and just everything about it was just. That's the snake that, like you said, it's a legendary animal. That's what I think of when I think of a Sula is that exact animal. It was just on a different level.
Yeah, something that would take 25 people or whatever to drape across. Yeah,
it was humongous. I mean, he had it in a 632, which I mean, me and him talked, and he was gonna get a big 10-foot Centec built for it at the time, and he ended up selling it because the thing got out, and it got out. It wasn't the friendliest. He said that it could. Oh my, sorry, my cat's freaking out. It got out, and it was like his room was small, like a 12 by 12 room or something like that, and it could literally strike at you and hit you from anywhere in the room. It was a humongous animal.
Terrifying.
So,
okay.
Yeah, it's a little scary. I mean, when we were there, we didn't take her out, but like just looking at her, it's a very intimidating snake.
I believe it, man.
You know, so
when the head of an animal can literally like take up two of your hands, you know you got something.
I mean, and I've seen. So Jim Gaspar had a giant tiger retic that was known for Twiggy, huge, giant, probably 21 foot or so, giant snake. I've been to Jay's and I've seen. Oh my God, I can't even think of the name. The big AML he had, Twinkie. I've seen Twinkie. I've held Twinkie. I'm not kidding. This Sula probably had that snake beat. Not in weight, but definitely I think had that snake beat in length for sure. It was a humongous animal.
So what would be your largest retic at this point?
My big blonde tiger female. Last time I measured her, she was like 19 foot 8, 19 foot 6, I think, something like that. This was a year ago, so she's probably 150-ish pounds, 160 pounds.
Wow.
Man.
She's like that.
And did you have kids the entire time that you had this retic and
No,
have been going through this?
So I mean, I've had my son is 5 and my daughter is 2.5. So I mean, I had that. I got that retic. Man, I don't even know. I've had her 10 years, 11 years, I think now at this point. But she's a puppy. I mean, she is probably one of the friendliest snakes that I own. I'm not even kidding. My kids they come down and I mean we play with the snakes and I mean I've pulled out some of I've actually pulled her out before and I mean obviously we have they don't touch the head, they don't go in front of her, all that sort of stuff, but they absolutely love the big snakes. And like I said, I work, like we were talking before, I work with kids, so I do like snake shows at my work. So I've brought her when she was smaller, and I physically cannot get her out of my basement by myself anymore. I wanted to bring her to Tinley in October, and I was trying, but there was just no possible. I tried. I put her in her tote, a big tote, and I couldn't. I physically could not get her up the stairs. So
it's a back injury waiting to happen.
She's too big. She's just too big and too massive. But her head is as big as my hand. I mean, it's a big snake.
I want to throw out respect to you and other people that keep these large retics because I've been keeping retics for a little less than 5 years now. And a lot of my stuff is working with the smaller and medium-sized localities. But I was just sent over for a partnership breeding a mainland tiger female that's 7 years old. Mm-hmm. She's only about 12 and a half feet or so, and that's an eyeball measurement. And she's about 50 pounds. And let me tell you, like, she's a complete sweetheart. I love the disposition of mainlands, man. They're amazing. But let me tell you, man, when I need to get her in a tub If she doesn't want to go in that tub, guess what?
Yeah,
She's not going in that tub. Like,
No.
so for you guys to be working with animals that are 100+ pounds, man, I don't think I could do it.
It's a lot of work.
I
It's a lot
don't
of
think I
work.
could do it.
See,
And that's
the thing is, I've been doing it so long. I don't know. I don't know any other way. That's why I've been doing snakes before I met my wife, and she's like, without the animals, I don't know what I would do with all this extra time I would have. Because it's come home from work, I clean snakes 5-6 hours a night, and that's every night almost. Weekends, and I mean, almost 20-foot snake with 40 pounds of pig. That's a huge mess to clean up. So
Yeah. I mean, when my 10-foot super dwarf is putting out the poops that are rivaling Great Danes, I could only imagine.
It's a lot, man. That's why I only feed though. That's why I like feeding those big meals because, like I said, it's only 6 times a year, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, so it's
yeah.
do it once a month or once every other month. It's not so terrible.
And it's actually a point. So like my largest snake right now is my pure Solaire female. She's 14 feet. And the thing is at 14 feet, and this is where people are like, Solaire's still get 14, 15 feet. They're not dwarfs, but what a lot of people aren't realizing is that my 14-foot Solaire is 35 pounds versus a mainland who's 14, 15 feet, but they're 100+ pounds.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize the girth.
Super agile too, though. But that 35 pound snake that moves. That's like the Jamp. So like my Jamp, she was like 15 foot when I got rid of her, and she wasn't like super huge, like girth wise. But man, that snake moved. That snake was probably the hardest snake to move and handle. It was a workout. That was actually part of the reason why I got rid of her. It was just she was kind of she had her first clutch, and she kind of wasn't the friendliest after that. And she was just so much to handle, and I just couldn't do. I'm done and over with the mean snakes in my collection at that point, and I don't want anything that I can't really handle or take out. So it was time for her to go. So traded her off. But
yeah, my Solaire, she's normally easy to work with, but she has her days, and man, with her length and her leanness. She'll kick my ass any day of the week.
Yeah.
She'll put me in my place if she's in a bad mood.
Yeah, they easily can do that for sure. The Sulas are like that. They'll buck you. And like my one girl I have now, if she don't want to be messed with, man, it's she'll slam your hand up into the top of the cage, or it's not to mess with them then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a girl that you go in there sometimes if she doesn't want to be messed with. You throw the hook on her back, and she'll throw it to the top of the cage. It's just like, all right.
Yep.
Yeah. Still coming out, but it's gonna be a little bit more obnoxious.
I had a girl do that. She bucked and she hit the hook into the glass and shattered one of the panes of glass. So hard, and that was a bummer because I didn't have a replacement glass at the time. So.
Yeah, I've never had that happen.
What'd you do in that situation?
I actually had an empty cage, so I ended up moving her to a different cage.
Yeah.
But I mean, she was not in a good mood, so it was fun moving her into a different cage. But yeah, so now I try to always keep 2 or 3 extra panes of every size around just for that reasoning.
That's actually, yeah, that exactly. If you guys are listening in, like literally, I had that happen to me recently, glass breaking and everything, and I was fortunate enough that I have a very large ARS rack, those 5.5 foot racks, that I was able to put my wild-caught Kalatoa in. If I didn't have that rack and I didn't have an extra enclosure, like I didn't think about like the actual consequence of that. So if you guys listening, definitely take that advice, get at least 1 extra cage. At least.
Yeah, it definitely helps. You know, I mean, I have an empty. You can see right here, I have an empty cage or stuff in it, but I have it in case something were to happen and I needed it. You know.
Yeah.
It's sitting there. So.
Let me ask you this. So, like, when I think of like Jake Klotz, JK Reptiles, like obviously the quality of your animals come to mind. I love seeing you post pictures of your animals. You have that beautiful blue hypo that I tried for the last 1.5 years to get you to sell to me. I've also just your anthrax stuff is great. But also like what I see when I think of Jake is like family man, because I
try. That's awesome. I love the kids, man. Like I said, I work with kids. Wanted kids my whole life. You know, we finally had kids, and it's like the greatest thing in the world is having these kids. I wanted more. My wife said absolutely not. No more kids.
Yeah.
We have 2, and it was both my kids were huge. My son was 10 pounds 3 ounces at birth, and my daughter was 9 pounds. Like I want to say she was like 9'2" or 9'3". My son was humongous, giant.
I need to shake your wife's hand and just
He's
hygiene in the Klotz family runs strong.
My wife is like 5'10", 5'11". Her dad is 6'4", 6'5".
Okay.
I mean, I'm 6'6". I mean, so it's,
Yeah.
he's already. I mean, he's in preschool now, and he's a foot taller than all the other kids. I mean, he looks like he's like 7 or 8 years old, and he's just turned 5. So, yeah.
If these monster kids ever need baseball lessons, hit me up.
Man, he's basketball right now.
I'll be their agent.
Yeah, I'm trying to get him to do football. We're actually doing flag football right now for him, but he likes basketball, so I'll take that. Something do something with him.
So for me, when my wife was pregnant, I was seeing a lot of you posting your videos on cutting eggs, pooling eggs with your son.
Yep.
And it was literally one of the most like heartwarming things. This is me getting ready for a kid, and I was just so excited at that time to have my first kid. And seeing you do that was like, I was like, man, that's it right there. That's like the next generation. You're raising the next generation. You're getting them interested. And now, like, fast forward into my daughter's almost 2. She'll run to I have my snakes in my garage, and she'll run to the garage door, pat, and she'll go, Nake,
That's awesome.
right?
That's
and so
awesome.
like I'll bring her in, and she points and she looks, and it's so I want to hear, like, what did you do to start acclimating your kids into, because I keep small snakes, man. You have big snakes, so what did you do?
I mean, I'll be like with the big snakes, it took some time, but I mean the little ones, it was trial by fire. We went down, like, as soon as they could kind of walk and kind of understand what was going on, it was come down, pull them out, here you go, check them out. They'd pet them and stuff, and it took a few times, and then they're kind of, let's hold them. And I mean, my son, obviously, I've done more with him, just with him being older, but yeah, I mean, he'll hold them and stuff. Like, he still gets nervous around the big stuff, which, I mean, is completely understandable.
I get nervous.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable. So, I mean, he likes them. My daughter is more into she's more into the animals than my son is. Like, he's cool with it, and he likes it. I think it's just because it's my thing. He wants to hang out with Dad and come down, and he's all excited because I have that anthrax clutch due to hatch in like the next week. So he's like, Daddy, we're gonna do it. Can we cut the eggs? I'm like, yeah, we're gonna cut them in a week or so. And he's like all excited. So, but again, I think that's just because it's my thing. But yeah, it was just kind of like bring them down, let them see the snakes, let them see all the colors, let them pet them, let them hold them. I mean, and if he wanted nothing to do with it, that would have been the end of it. But he liked it and is into it. My daughter is the same way. We haven't done anything recently just because life's been too hectic. But like I said, we're gonna do the egg cutting here soon and hopefully some more egg pulling videos. So I said, get her out there, let her start messing with them. You know.
I was gonna say, how old's your daughter?
She's 2.5.
2.5. Okay, so that's close to mine, and
I'll put the little babies, or like, the little, like, couple month old babies around her neck, and she's all like, oh no, like, I don't want to drop it, but she loves it.
That's awesome.
Well, it's just me, and I only have the nieces, but now that's making me, because I have one that's super into the snakes and loves to come in and check them out, but now I'm thinking it's time to bring her in, start playing with the small stuff, and
I'd say
try to get her into it.
As early as, I mean, I would bring my son down here when he was a baby. He couldn't even walk. He was months old, and I'd bring him down here, and I'd hold him, and he's looking in the cages, and I mean, I'd have these big retics, like, would fly up to the glass, and they're looking at him, and tongue's going, and he's just, like, looking, like, what is that? And, I mean, I have pictures of him at his first NARBC. I think he was like 6 months old, and he's like sat on an alligator and stuff. And it's just I just wanted to get him exposed as much as possible, as quick as possible. Like I said, if they're not into it, it's cool. At least they'll understand, like, these aren't anything to be afraid of. And if they're not cool with them, then it's fine. But I think they both like my monitor more than the snakes, to be honest with you. They both think the monitor is like the coolest thing. They call him a baby dinosaur.
They really are.
They cannot get enough of that.
I haven't gotten monitors for that reason. I feel like once I get my first like few even small monitors, I feel like I'm gonna sell all my snakes and just
Uh,
get monitors.
I don't know. I'm a snake guy. The lizard's cool and I like it, but I don't know if I like them. I like the snakes, man. The snakes are so cool.
Yeah, I want a couple monitors, like a couple tree monitors or something like that, but I don't foresee it becoming my thing. I foresee the super dwarfs always kind of being the passion of mine.
I settled for a water. My heart is on I want a croc monitor.
Oh yeah, that's the
been
Oh,
pinnacle.
if you
I've
like
wanted one.
monitors, who wouldn't want one?
Yeah,
Right?
I've wanted one forever, probably as long as I've kept retics, and I've had numerous opportunities to buy them, and I never did. And it's just, I would, it's a pinnacle animal for me, and I will own one day as well. It's just, it's not the right time. Maybe when my kids are older and I have maybe not so many snakes and not so focused on the snakes and I have more time. But it's, I don't know. There's nothing. I don't think there's anything cooler that you could own, honestly, than a croc monitor.
I mean, other than that, it's probably a Komodo, but at that point, you're a little crazy.
I think the crocs are cooler, honestly. I've got to interact with some big ones, and they are. I've never. I mean, I've been raised around animals. My family rehabbed animals when I was a kid, so I had all sorts of weird stuff when I was growing up, and I've been exposed to a lot of different stuff. I've never really been scared of an animal. When that first time I got a hold of a big croc monitor, I was outside. I looked okay, but I was terrified inside because I knew what kind of damage these things could do, and I mean I'm holding it like a baby, and it was
Their
super
teeth
friendly.
are razor sharp.
And its head was like right by my throat, and I could feel its tongue going.
Oh.
I'm just thinking to myself, if this thing were to bite me, for whatever
In the
reason,
neck, you're dead.
the chance that I survive is slim. And I've never been more scared. But it was after I left, I thought it was the coolest experience I've ever had with an animal. So
Yeah.
one day.
I agree. I still need to interact with a croc. I haven't. I got to at the February NARBC got to hold a water monitor. That was one of the coolest things I've ever experienced. And the only reason why I've been reserved on getting any monitor, even things like Ackies, I think I was going to start with a trio of Ackies. But it's just because they're animals that need daily
It's a lot
routine
of work.
and attention. They're and that's the beautiful thing about snakes. It's clean a few times a week. You feed once every week, and then every couple weeks, and then every 3 weeks you can feed. But with monitors, if you don't spend time with them daily, you pay for it. You end up having a nervous animal that hates you and wants to bite you.
Yeah, it's a ton of work, man. It's like I almost not regret it, but I'm like, man, it's a lot of time spent on that one animal when I have all these other animals that still need attention. So it's like I almost kind of wish I would have waited a little longer and maybe slimmed down my collection a little bit and then got the lizard. I mean, we're making do. I mean, he was really flighty when I got him. And it was a lot of like leaving him alone. I've talked to a lot of the monitor guys, but a lot of leaving him alone. And now he's starting to come around. But man, it's like you said, it's water changes every day, feeding every like other day, just constantly cleaning his cage out. And I'm actually getting ready to build him a cage. He's in this big vision right here, but I'm getting ready to build him something here soon. But yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot. It's like a dog. It's like having a dog almost. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
Yeah. But extreme, I'd say probably more rewarding than a dog in a lot of ways.
It's when he's out and I can pull him out and he's crawling on you and you're scratching him under the chin and he's closing his eyes. It is a pretty cool experience for sure.
It's literally petting a dinosaur. I don't think people realize that they are not that far removed.
It really is. It really is. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm tight. I got him from Shane, and me and Shane are super close. I mean, I go to his house all the time, and you go in there and you see his monitor room, and it's these big cages with these big lizards, and they're all decorated nice with branches and leaves and these big pools, and it's a pretty cool thing to walk into and see. Like, man, it's like a bunch of dinosaurs sitting here. The snakes are awesome, but man, it's totally different with the lizards.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I love my snakes.
Let me ask you this, going back on the conversation in regards to your kiddos. So you're going to end up running into teenagers who sometimes don't like to follow rules and all of these different things. I'm curious if you've even had the thought in your mind of what you're going to be implementing about like the reptile room, those kind of things, because like I think in the back of my mind, like if my daughter in her teenage years decided she wanted to have friends over, and the snakes were in the garage and they were having a sleepover. I'm passed out upstairs. I'm not hearing anything. If they want to be idiots and like go in the snake room while I'm not there.
Right.
So like talk about kind of how you educate your kids on safety and those kind of things, and like anything that you might plan to do when they get older, just to have that extra sense of security.
So
That's
I
a
mean,
great question.
yeah, that is my. I mean, I'm hoping by that time I'm gonna have these things in a separate building. That's the end goal. Is I want a separate snake building facility, or attachment on my garage, something, something like that. Um, that I can have a key code or whatever, some way where they cannot get in. Um, but I think on the other side, I think a lot of it, like I said, is just exposure, getting them exposed to the animals and teaching them, they're not toys. It's not something to screw around with. They can be dangerous. It's kind of the same as like guns. I feel like you got to expose them as.
Oh, yeah.
I feel, and I hunt. I have guns, so my kids are exposed. I've talked about guns. We they're not shooting guns, obviously, but it's just I think exposure and getting them used to the stuff and explaining to them that they're not toys and it's serious consequences if you were to go down there and something happens, and not to give in to the peer pressure, because I'm sure it would be all their friends, oh, let's go see your dad's snakes or this or that, and God forbid, I mean, at the end of the day I can only control so much too, so I can't stop a kid if my kids don't want to go down there and a kid goes down there without them. I mean, what can I do? I mean, I could put my own locks on the door. I've thought about doing that, like pin codes on my doors now, but they don't go down here now. But I don't know. A lot's going to have to change or a lot is going to change once they get older. We're looking for new houses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing is just exposure and education on the animals.
Yeah.
Well, and I think about myself as a kid, and if there was somewhere I couldn't get into or wasn't supposed to get into, I would pretty easily find a way.
Right,
And
exactly.
kids are pretty smart. They're going to find a way
Yeah.
if they really, really want to. So
Absolutely.
I think that education on just
Yeah.
know what the consequences are is huge.
Yeah. Me being a therapist, and I work with a lot of kids and teens. So these are kids and teens that typically parents are bringing in with behavioral issues.
Right.
And so my perception of kids and teens from my work is always expect the absolute worst that you absolutely can.
Yeah, no, I agree, 100%. It's, but I do think, yeah, like you said, the exposure and stuff is. I don't think you can do anything better than that, really. I mean, mine is just like locking them out and not giving them any access, but
Yeah.
which obviously you want to do as well. But kids will be kids too, though.
Yeah. So and I mean, for myself, I've thought about like in the future, if they're in the same building as like my house, like in the garage or something, is actually having a lock to that door, whether it's a key lock or a code lock that you can switch over, or doing that. I think you mentioned that, and I think that's a good idea, just for them to not even gain access to that. But I think specifically working with retics, I think you're right on the point with exposure and education, because I think if they're just in the room long enough with you as a kid growing up before their rebellious teenage years, they're probably every once in a while going to see that, like, yeah, I probably shouldn't try to pull this type of snake out. Right.
Well, so like funny. So I have a nephew. He's He's like 8 or 9 years old, and he doesn't live in the States, so he only comes down every once in a while. But he's scared of the snakes, but he's like super intrigued by the snakes. So he was down visiting, and we came downstairs, and my son was down here, and my son was telling my nephew's name is Johnny. He goes, you don't touch the snakes. You have to use this, and he shows him a snake hook. She's like, you have to use this first before you can touch them, and you can't reach in or they'll bite you. So I mean, he's already learning, like, not. Obviously, I don't want him going down here doing it, but he knows, like, not to just reach in. The snake will bite you, stuff like that, which is kind of cool. Which I did not think he picked up on any of that, but obviously he's learning and figuring it out. So, pretty. I don't know. I just thought that was super cool that he's kind of educating somebody on it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I mean. It all comes down to education. And the beautiful part about what I've seen that you've done in your videos with your kids is it's still in this like loving dad way. You're like, be careful, don't touch the head, or don't yank or don't grab. And again, I'm gonna post in the description, we'll have Jake's Instagram handles, his Facebook handle. I really recommend that you try to scroll through down, and I'll even see if we can try to cut a clip in here of you cutting a clutch. There's just one video that really just like is ingrained because again, it was while my wife was pregnant, and I was like, man, this is what it's about. And so, like just the way that you talk to your kids and not shame your kids when they do something that you know when they're a little too aggressive or a little too impulsive to just reach in and grab. The way that you respond has been phenomenal. How has your wife been with all this?
She's not a snake person. She does
Neither
not
is
care.
mine.
She does not care for the snakes, in all honesty. You know, when we started dating, I had a few snakes, and you know, she's like, "Oh, okay, he has snakes," and I think I had maybe a handful, 9 or 10 at the time, and I don't think she really understood what I wanted it to turn into. Like I had my dreams of what I wanted, right, and I don't think she really saw that. So like it's slowly. I mean, she's supportive, and I mean she's supportive in my hobby, and it makes me happy. And I mean, there's worse things I could be out doing, right? So, but I think she would like them better, especially if they were out of our house. You know, that's the biggest thing is, you know, we go on vacation for a week and we come home, and I have to time everything. I don't feed anything before we leave for a week or two at least. But you know, something's gonna pee or poo. It always happens. We come home. It's in the basement. My furnace is down here, so the furnace kicks on. That smell goes upstairs. That's the biggest thing she hates. It's just if I'm not on top of my cleaning for a few days, the house stinks like snakes. So that's the biggest thing for her. I think is just that. So that's why I said my goal is I want to get them out of the house. I mean, I want them out of the house as well. I think it would just make life better. Period. But I mean, like I said, all things considered, she's supportive. She comes to the shows when she can. She shares all my stuff. She talks about, you know, all of her friends always ask her snake questions, and she knows she's somewhat knowledgeable, and you know, so that's I guess all I could really hope for, you know.
So, I mean, I relate to that. I had my snakes inside my house. Now they're in my garage, and so very rarely, if you pass by the garage opening, you'll smell something. That's only if someone just recently, like if they crap in water or pee in water, is when you can kind of smell through that door. But yeah, it was the same. Like in order to convince my wife to breed these, so number one, took me 2-3 years to convince her to even buy like my first snake, and I knew I wanted super dwarf retics when I got back into snakes. So she finally said yes, and then literally like a year and a half after I got my first snake, I write a 5-6 business proposal page on breeding these animals, and I literally still have the rough draft of that business proposal to her to show her that this could be profitable, and she is so supportive, man. But at the end of the day, I relate to you in the sense of like she's not a snake person, she's not a reptile person. She tolerates me. I find myself like wanting to talk to her about them, and I bite my tongue because I'm like she's gonna punch me in the face if I keep going.
That's exactly how it is. I mean, we'll be out to dinner and I'll be getting texts or phone calls. I try not to do phone calls, but I'll get a text, you know, about an animal or something, and it's, you know, I got to respond. You know, I got that customer service. You know, I got to help out or whatever. You know, so that gets annoying, and I try not to do that but I fall into it. It always happens. And I mean, you guys know how it is. It's snakes 24/7. So I mean, hey, I got this new clutch coming. Oh, do you want to see this new baby? It's a world's first. Or hey, check this snake out. Look at it. You know, and she supports it, and like you said, she'll to a T. You know, and then it's kind of okay. That's enough snake talk, or that I don't want to hear about snakes, or I don't want to hear about this, or. You know, but she's not an animal person either. Like she's not really into she had cats and stuff growing up. So like, I just got a dog recently. She's never had a dog. So and of course I got a Great Dane. So it's like the biggest dog I could possibly get. So she's not happy about a giant dog, giant snakes. I mean, everything in my life I have to do big, right? I gotta have the biggest of everything. I feel like so. But that's life.
I'm almost curious to like for me in the stance of like having a family and having all these snakes, and for the outsiders looking in, even my super dwarf stuff are huge animals, right?
Yeah.
So like what whiplash have you had from like family, friends, or the community, or like I don't know if you played in like a men's softball league or whatever the case may be, but like what's some of the whiplash or some of the comments and some of those things that people make, and how do you handle those situations in terms of like keeping kids and having 150-pound snakes at your house?
I mean, I'll be honest. A lot of people I know are super supportive. I mean, they know I'm knowledgeable and I'm not. You know, it's something that I've been involved in pretty much my whole life. I haven't really got too much negative feedback, really. Obviously, you know, like my in-laws, because they're a little more nervous because they're not around the animals or see the animals. So of course it could be, oh my grandkids are around these giant animals. Don't let them get out. This or that. And, you know, I try to educate them the best I can. But like all my coworkers, like they know that I know my stuff, and I mean, I don't know. I really haven't had too much negative reactions, honestly, or feedback, I guess you'd say.
Nathan, have you had any like I mean, you had your neighbor, call the cops on you because
Really?
you were keeping a crocodile.
Uh, yeah. No crocodilians or alligators are allowed here in
Oh
the
god.
state of Utah. No, we had just like a little kiddie pool hanging out in the front yard, being just a little white trash summer kind of thing. And we thought about having the snakes out there, but usually they're just cruising the grass. And I guess one of our neighbors next door, this old lady who just recently passed away, she ended up calling animal control on us. I
Oh my
think a
god.
total of 5 times.
Oh my
Uh,
god.
but jokes on her. The lead animal control guy, he's a garter snake breeder. And he came over, had a little calming conversation with our neighbor, and then he came over to my house, parked his truck in front of her house, and he played with some snakes for a while.
That's awesome. That's very cool. You know,
Yeah.
this house where I'm at now, I've only lived here 7 years or so. So like, I know the neighbors, but I don't take any of the snakes outside. Let them cruise around in the grass or stuff like that. Just my neighbor, I made a comment before about, oh yeah, I have snakes, and I didn't. I kind of left it at that. He didn't ask. I didn't say much more than that.
Hmm.
But my previous house where I lived, in the town I lived in, where I lived my whole life, I mean, everybody knew I had snakes. The police knew I had snakes. I had friends that are police officers that would come over and, hey, we got this new guy. Let's show him the snakes or this or that, and they'd have issues where people, oh, there's a rattlesnake in my basement. They'd call me and I'd go check it out, and it was, so like everybody, I'm the weird reptile guy that everybody knows, so it was.
We have a Facebook community for our HOA area, and I see people all the time just like careful this time of the year and snakes, and they're showing pictures of snakes with their heads cut off because they shovel them. And I've put out all the time I've made posts, reach out to me. Like I've put my number on there. I put where I live on there because these are all people within the same neighborhood. And I'm like, call me like anytime, day or night. And still, yeah, I haven't. And I still see people doing that. But
Too much work for them. Too much work to
right.
call you.
Just to say like, hey, I see a snake. Can you come over? Right. Too much work.
Terrible.
But yeah, I mean, I haven't had it as bad as Nathan did in that circumstance. But like in my HOA, like I go through all the. By the way, HOAs suck. I wish I never moved here.
Nope, never gonna happen here. Nope.
No, I cannot wait. Like my wife is like, we just moved here like a year ago, and I'm like, yeah, and I'm already planning buying property, getting the hell away from here. Like, but yeah, so like in my HOA, it doesn't say that you can't keep snakes. Doesn't say that you can't keep certain. All it says is that you can't keep like livestock animals. So like, farm animals. So,
Right.
but what it does say is that if you have a pet that is a nuisance and you have multiple complaints, they can ask you to remove them. And so I've always been kind of nervous about having my snakes out, even in my backyard, because I have like a quarter acre in my backyard, but I have 3 houses around me that are 2 stories. So if any of them are on the second story, they can see right into my backyard.
Absolutely.
So I actually I took the plunge with like one neighbor first, test the waters. we were just talking. We were redoing the fence, and I asked him. I said, "Hey, I want to be honest with you. I wanted to let you know, like, I keep snakes, and just wanted to see, like, if I had them in the backyard, would that bother you?" And he's like, "Oh no, not at all." Blah blah. He's like, "What kind of snakes?" And he was curious and interested. So I was like, "All right, that went well. Let me ask my next backdoor neighbor." Ask them. Kind of that same response. They were a little bit more like weary, and they're like, "Yeah, as long as they don't escape." And I was like, "No, they won't escape. They're good. Even if they get out of their cage, they're in my garage. They're not going anywhere."
Right.
So far it's worked out. But I will say with like, I've had pictures of that my wife has posted on her story on Instagram, or that I'll post of my daughter like touching one of the snakes, or like Elise will post a picture on her story of her of like holding one of the snakes, and she gets questions all the times of like, "You're not worried that snake's gonna get out and eat your daughter?"
Yeah.
And fortunately, because I talk so much about snakes and ramble on and annoy the crap out of her, she knows how to respond to those questions. Of like, no, but yeah, I mean, I've gotten some whiplash from friends and things of, there's always that question of like, "Oh, you have a baby, you're not scared it's going to eat your baby?" And it's like, I kind of want to punch you in the throat for asking that. But
Right.
now that we're on the topic, let me educate your dumbass. And well,
Yeah, I mean, like I said, most people are super like they're like super intrigued. It's always a million questions. You know, like friends of mine will like introduce me to their friends, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he keeps snakes." And you keep snakes? What kind? And then of course I gotta pull out the phone and check this out, and they're like, "What is that? Like that's a snake?" Like I'll show them a cow or I'll show them
now
whatever.
that's
They're
a
like, "What?"
dragon.
And they're like, "What the hell? Like that is the crazy." I'm like, "Yeah." And then it turns into a big thing, and then of course I end up talking about snakes all night when we're at a party or whatever, you know. So it's just that never get away from it.
So let's jump into maybe just a little bit of our like rapid fire-esque questions
Yeah.
here to kind of start wrapping things up. So, what would be your, let's see, let's start with favorite locality.
Oh, Sula, man, Sulawesi, of course,
I feel like we've already covered that enough, right?
by far.
Uh, okay, maybe a little bit more controversial jumping on. Uh, Lucas and myself, we both got kind of dragged into the super dwarf stuff. Are super dwarfs all hype or are they legit?
That's a tough question, honestly. So like I got in. I had super dwarfs many years ago. I bought them when they first got in, because it was the new thing, right? So I got into retics because they're big. They're big. They're giant. They're
Yeah.
humongous animals. That's what I like. I said everything I have. I have a Great Dane. I have a water monitor. Big retics. I drive a lifted truck. I got everything in my life is big. So like,
Yeah.
I'm a big guy. So I like the
Your
Yeah.
big stuff.
baby was born 10 pounds.
My child, both my children are huge. So it's like I wouldn't say I don't think they're hype. I mean they are the real deal. I mean I've seen some tiny animals. Um, I still would like to see, and I don't know if anyone's ever done. I've never really. I follow it a little bit. You know, I don't follow the super dwarf stuff a ton, but I do follow it enough. But I would like to see somebody take some of the pure stuff and like really hammer it with food. I really would like to see, like, I would love to get.
I'm
Are
doing
you?
it. I mean, what my philosophy is I want to maximize growth potential while keeping them a healthy weight, because I want to know the maximum growth potential of all my clutches.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I like. If I got, I've looked at buying, getting back into them at the, Kalatoa or something, and I'm like, if I get one, I'm gonna feed it how I feed my mainland stuff, and I want to see what I could get like a female Kalatoa. I'm genuinely curious.
As long as you keep it healthy and you're not doing it to have a, because
Right.
we've seen an 18-foot Jampea, but we also
Oh, yeah,
saw
that's
it die. We also saw it die at 14 years old because it was
yeah.
overweight and obese and
Well,
sluggish.
that's how Jim's were like that. Jim fed the hell out of his. His were huge. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever seen that picture of me with the giant jam.
Yep.
Yeah, it's huge.
I almost
Mhm.
With the
mentioned
big
that. I know
fatty
that picture.
deposits. Yeah, it's a cool picture, but yeah, he fed them insane.
I remember commenting, "Is that snake gravage?" You're like, "Nah, that's fat."
No, it's fat. But like my Jamp, I mean, I fed her a lot. I fed her hard, but dude, she was a super lean, perfect, beautiful animal, and she was 15 feet, 15 and a
Yeah.
half feet. I mean, she was like this.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would really like to try to do the same thing with a super dwarf, but you know, and I keep going back and forth. I'm gonna get into them, but then I'm like, I don't know if I can. It's just not my thing, and I kind of like, I kind of like because I feel like a lot of mainland guys do have some super dwarf stuff, and I'm like one of the few, if only, that don't. So I kind of like
Yeah.
being a little different, and like, so I mean, and it sucks because so many. I mean, I know that's you're gonna make more sales and do that, and you know, as a business, you want to sell stuff, but I'm like, I also I'm not gonna just get them because it's profitable. You know, it's just that's not my thing. You know,
Love
I
that.
Yeah,
don't,
if
my
you're
heart's not into it.
totally, yeah, if you're not totally passionate about it, then why do it?
Exactly.
So
I mean, it's the same philosophy as like Weston. Weston likes the big retics, so I mean,
Yep.
why go the other direction just because everyone's doing it?
right, it's I've never been one. I've never been one to follow the crowd. I've always kind of did my own thing. You know, I got so many people were giving me crap when I was breeding when I bred my Sula, my platy tiger, and my Sula was making the crosses, and I had you know so many people were like, why would you do that?
That's
You're
a great
wasting it.
pairing.
But back then, nobody was doing that stuff. So it's like,
Yeah.
why would you do that? Why would you waste a female on that? You know, and it's, I kind of happy I did it. I just kind of followed my own path. But yeah, I don't know. It's but I do believe that they're real. I mean, I think they're legit animals. So
Awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. And I mean, you know, I've seen the same. I've seen some giant super dwarf animals, and I've seen, you know, stuff that stays extremely tiny. So you really have to do your research, see what you're working with, all that stuff. All right, maybe jumping away from the snakes a little bit. But favorite sport.
ooh, that's tough. Probably football,
Okay. So let's get a second favorite just for shits and giggles.
basketball, football and basketball.
Ooh.
Okay. And college or pros on either?
Pros.
Okay. Thank you. So yes. Oh, okay.
I've never been into college basketball, and
Me-
I've never
me
been into
too.
college football.
I
Oh,
played
man,
college.
football. Ugh,
I
so
played
good.
college. I played college sports, and I can respect college sports. But like at the end of the day, you're spending a lot of money on amateurs.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree. I mean, I like so like
Go
I played
Utes.
I played basketball a lot. Like I didn't play in high school. I could have. I should have. But I would never. I like watching football. I never played football. I should have. I mean, I like screwing around playing, but I wish I would have played football more.
Yeah, you
but
would have laid some kids out.
I yeah, I love everything about football. I've had a lot of friends that play football. I'm injury prone a lot. I get hurt quite a bit, like weird freak accidents. So I kind of didn't want to go that route. I mean,
I feel you on that.
Even basketball, I've gotten weird
Oh,
random injuries.
New. Okay. So another just spontaneous rapid fire question. What is the weirdest injury that's happened to you?
So I broke my arm throwing a football.
That's great.
Right here, literally,
What?
it was a spiral fracture.
Throwing a football.
Yeah,
Hold on.
I had a. So we do a big end of the summer fest. I was in I was a freshman going into sophomore, and we have a big end of the year fest at the town I lived in when I was a kid, and we always would play tackle football. That was like everybody played. So I dropped back and I launched the ball, and when I threw it, I just remember hearing a pop, and I kind of blacked out. And when I looked down, and I go to lift my arm up like this, I could see the bone. It didn't break through the skin, but I could see the bone like trying to come through the skin. And I just ran home freaking out, and they said I had a cyst on my bone. So they said it could have happened carrying a gallon of milk into the house, you know, and whatever.
It was
but
just gonna
a freak
happen.
accident.
My weirdest injury. I don't know if you know what your flexor tendon or ligament is, but I was taking my baseball sock off while I was in college, and I literally tore the tendon in my middle finger the tendon that keeps it straight up. So I had my finger bent completely. So literally had to wear a cast on my finger for 8 weeks because I tried taking my sock off.
I had a bad knee. I tore my patellar in my knee really bad doing basketball. That one sucked.
Yep.
I would take a broken bone any day over
So-
the torn.
So, have you ever seen Tom Segura, the comedian, his basketball injury?
No,
Dude,
I never
He
did.
tore his patellar tendon and then it fell down with the full weight of his arm and snapped
yeah,
whatever bone this is up here.
it's a bad injury.
Oh,
Ooh, that's bad.
I'll have to send that one to you. But as soon as you said patellar tendon, I was just like, oh man,
That one sucked. I remember coming down. Went up for a rebound. When I came down, I literally felt it snap, and it felt like a rubber band shooting down my leg. And I was like, "Oh, that's not bad. That's
Oh
not
yeah.
good." It sucked so bad.
Yeah, Tom got his on film, and because he tore his on the launch off, you can hear it snap before he even hits the ground.
Nathan, are you going to drop that link in the bio?
I absolutely will drop the link to Tom Segura's injury in the bio because
it's so bad.
It brings me some sick joy.
That one was probably the worst, though. I did not like that one.
Oh yeah, I believe it for sure.
So real quick, Nathan, I'm going to ask the next two questions. Favorite team in each of those two sports? Go.
Bears and Bulls, gotta support Chicago.
Man, you're my friends. So, oh man, I was gonna ask you a kind of improv
the Bears
question.
suck right now, so I mean it's whatever. But
they
gotta
do
support them.
I was gonna ask an improv question, but I already know the answer to this. But just for everyone, who is the GOAT in basketball?
Oh, MJ.
I know. I didn't know that you being.
There's no question.
I didn't know that you being a freaking Bulls fan. Now that I know that, there's no
there's
debate.
no question.
I'm a Utah Jazz fan, and I still acknowledge that. I got to see him playing growing up. You can't deny that.
I lived in, so I grew up in Sarasota, Florida, where the Chicago White Sox used to play ball, and so I actually went to over a handful of Michael Jordan's AAA ball games and spring training games. So I actually got to watch Michael Jordan play professional baseball.
That's pretty cool. I went to his basketball camp when I was in 6th grade. That was fun. That was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
All right, Nathan, you're up. Next question.
All right, so let's see. Favorite alcoholic beverage?
I'm a beer drinker. PBR. I love my PBR.
Yeah.
Okay,
Pabst,
so you're not one of these craft beer boys.
No.
You don't like the fancy.
PBR. The fanciest I get is Corona. That's about
there
the fanciest
we go.
I get. PBR and Corona.
I have memories of PBR just popping them and doing shotguns.
Oh, I love tequila though. I'm a big tequila Patron guy. I love Patron. Yep. There you go. There you go.
That was great.
Yep.
That was great.
All right, so
that's awesome.
This is gonna be a loaded one. Ideal enclosure size for reticulated pythons.
Adult retics.
Ideally, I would love to do 10x4s. I'd love to do 10x4 for mainlands. I would.
Respectable. I like that.
Now, given, say, like a 10 to 12 foot super dwarf, what would you say ideal enclosure size is there?
6x3, maybe.
Like it.
Little, maybe tall. Maybe do like 2 foot tall. You know.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, if I would not when I win the Powerball, my plan would be I would love to go like old school David Tracy Barker and do like they had these giant like 12 by 12 by giant rooms. That's what I would love to do. A whole warehouse full of those would be ideal. But
that would be insane.
That'd be the way to go.
Yeah.
All right. So if you were to go back in time and change your breeding and keeping plans, what are some changes maybe that you would make? What are some adjustments there?
Like if you could go back in time and change anything about how you started keeping and breeding, what would you do?
Oh, man, that's a tough one. I mean, I don't know. The only thing I could, as far as breeding wise, like I would probably say, like I would have did some pairings differently. Would have put me ahead a little bit further. I think keeping wise, I don't know. I feel like I kind of evolved with the times, so I don't know if I would change anything too much there. But breeding wise, I wish I would have did because I had the first Platinum Phantom that was produced that was for sale in the U.S. I kind of wish I would have put that in the purple stuff right away. I never did that, and I really, really, really regret doing that a lot. That's probably one of my biggest regrets, not doing that off the bat. Should have been my first breeding. So
yeah.
The holdback game can be the toughest, I think. I mean, hindsight's always 20/20.
Everybody telling me you got to breed it to a purple or a purple tiger, and I was like, nah. Platinum Phantom purples are not going to be good, and this and that, and that was probably the biggest regret I had as far as breeding goes.
That just goes to show your veteran status. The idea of Phantom, right? Because the hype of Phantom right now is ridiculous. But I'm actually really excited. Nathan's trying to hit on some purple phantoms and possibly snow phantoms this year.
Oh,
So
that'd be cool. That'd be very cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
we'll see, but I mean, yeah, for me, the Phantom's always just been the white snake thing. Like everyone wants to have some form of that white snake in their collection. I don't care who you are. If you're breeding,
Oh, they're awesome. They're
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
So before we sign out here, I want to end this on kind of like an inspirational type of way. I want you to give your best advice to any new keepers or new breeders that are trying to be breeders out there. Like, what is the number one thing that you want to leave for people to do?
Biggest thing I think would be to ask questions. Don't be afraid to reach out to some of the guys. You know, reach out to some of the guys that have been involved in the hobby a long time, and you know, like I try to help out everybody that asks me questions. You know, so don't be afraid to reach out, ask people questions, post questions on the forums. You know, be that annoying person. That's the only way you're going to learn. You're going to learn by asking questions. So, I think that's the best way. You know.
Yeah,
I totally agree. I have people asking me questions all the time about other people's animals, and the first thing I tell them is, ask that person or ask the person who produced the animals before them, and you know.
Yeah, I mean, and if you have like
Most of the time you'll get responses, and you're going to get people who are eager to help you just because we were all in that position at one point as well.
Absolutely.
yeah,
And I mean, if you have like keeping questions too, ask multiple people. I always did that. I would ask 5
Yeah.
or 6 different
me
people.
too.
Take a little bit from everybody and do my own thing. And you know, you don't know it all. You're never going to know it all. So your best bet is just to ask as many people as possible,
Yeah.
and try different things and see what works for you. What works for me isn't going to work for you guys necessarily, and vice versa. So
Yeah,
it's just it's a lot of trial and error, and a lot of asking questions, I think. So
yeah. Awesome, man. Beautiful response to end that episode. Guys, I want to thank you so much for listening in on today's episode of the Retic Lounge with Jake Klotz of JK Reptiles. Jake, it was a pleasure having you on. Guys, please like, subscribe, follow. Go ahead and engage in those comments. We love to reply back to you. Do not forget to check out our Patreon, see if that's right for you. And, of course, always support USARK. Go to their Instagram, go to their Facebook, follow, they like to send updates in regards to different legislative issues that are going on throughout the country. That is your best bet to knowing and educating yourself on how to protect our rights. Support them, become a member, donate when you can. For those of you breeders that are out there, if you guys are not breeding any part of your profitability to USARK, reconsider. Really do that. And anything else from you guys?
So yeah, I mean, we've both kind of talked a little bit about USARK, but Jake's been in this. He's a veteran in this community. I want to know what USARK kind of means to you.
it's everything. I mean, they're the only ones fighting for us. We have to. There's so many people that are, say stuff about USARK or, this or that, but there's nobody else out there. We have to support them. And I think Phil is doing an awesome job. I think
He really is.
I still remember when I think it was right before the Lacey Act or right after the Lacey Act ended. I remember Phil got together, came and grabbed all of us Retic guys together. There was 15, 20 of us at one of the Tinley shows and sat us down and said, this is what's going on and blah, 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 and this is what we're doing. I just want you guys to hear it from my mouth, this kind of thing. And, it's without them, we would be screwed. There'd be nobody keeping Retics. So we need to support them. Like you said, you guys always say we need the numbers, and that couldn't be more accurate. The money's great and everything, but everybody needs to be a member. If you keep any reptile, you need to be a member. It's a no-brainer. I feel
Fish,
like,
invertebrates, anything. Yeah, you should be
even
a member
that would
of
help
USARK.
too. But especially reptiles. If you keep a reptile, you need, or even multiple reptiles, you need to support USARK. You have to. I
For
don't
the
even know
price
how
of a
else to
cup
say
of
it.
coffee. Come on.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here with you today if it weren't for Phil and USARK. So they mean the world to me. So
Absolutely.
please, if you're listening to this and aren't a member, become a member today.
100%.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight, and we'll catch you next week on another episode of the Retic Lounge. You guys have a good night.
Thanks, guys.